Hey, I'm Paige DeSorbo, and I'm always thinking about underwear.
I'm Hannah Burner, and I'm also thinking about underwear, but I prefer full coverage. I like to call them my granny panties.
Actually, I never think about underwear. That's the magic of Tommy John.
Same, they're so light and so comfy, and if it's not comfortable, I'm not wearing it.
And the bras, soft, supportive, and actually breathable.
Yes, Lord knows the girls need to breathe. Also, I need my PJs to breathe and be buttery soft and stretchy enough for my dramatic tossing and turning at night. That's why I live in my Tommy John pajamas.
Plus, they're so cute because they fit perfectly.
Put yourself on to Tommy John.
Upgrade your drawer with Tommy John. Save 25% for a limited time at TommyJohn.com/comfort. See site for details.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Scary, a Paranormal Podcast. Before we get into this week's episode, I want to say a special thank you to our new Patreon subscribers who are Janique, Trevor Murray and Amber Rigby. Thank you so much for signing up and supporting the show. If this is something that you're interested in, you can find the link for the show's Patreon in this episode's show notes, where you get ad-free main episodes and exclusive Patreon-only scary episodes. A new exclusive episode will be out this Monday, so keep an ear out for that, all you Patreon subscribers. But now it's time to get into this week's paranormal encounter. In the early 1990s, I worked in a small independent bookstore. It was owned by a couple in their 50s who were friends with my mum and dad. The wife had had health problems and they were finding it hard to find somebody to help cover shifts to keep the store running, keep money coming in. Initially I thought that it would just be for a couple of weeks, but I ended up being there for the bones of a year in the end. The bookstore was quite narrow but long and stretched back quite far. It had this charm about it. There was armchairs dotted throughout, which encouraged people to stay for as long as they wanted. And it wasn't too long after I started working there that I realised that there was a few characters that frequented the bookshop regularly. One afternoon I heard the bell above the door chime, and that was the first time I met Mrs. Cunningham. She was an odd one, always clad in these flowing dark dresses, with a gaze that seemed to look right through you. She looked to be in her late 70s. She was mostly quiet, very polite, but definitely reserved. Occasionally she'd ask for recommendations or discuss a particular author's viewpoint. To be honest, I just kind of winged it. Her particular interest was the occult. Her knowledge seemed to be extensive. She could talk about medieval alchemy one minute and the next switch to modern day spiritualism. A lot of the time I just nodded along with a smile. There was a definite depth to her, which was intriguing, slightly intimidating. Other customers in the store would glance her way. You could tell they were curious by her dress sense, but cautious. Definite sense of respect, maybe even a little bit of fear. Maybe that's the wrong word to use. At first, I was just curious about her. Meeting all these new people was fun. But as time went on, I began to feel that there was something more to her visits. She wasn't just a regular customer. She had this aura about her that suggested that she was searching for something far beyond what the pages of the books could offer. But I put it down to her being a bit eccentric. I'd catch her a few times talking to herself. And when she'd catch me catching her, she'd look a little bit embarrassed. Mrs. Cunningham had become such a regular presence in the store that her absence was immediately noticeable. At first I thought maybe she was on a trip or perhaps she was unwell. But then weeks turned into a month and there was no sign of her. I ended up finding out about her passing through one of our other regular customers, Mr. Roach. He was this local historian, and often I'd catch him and Mrs. Cunningham exchanging stories. And one day he came in looking a bit somber and broke the news. And he just told me that she had passed away in our house. She lived alone. As time went on, the whole thing left me feeling a little bit strange. Here was a woman who had spent so much time in our little world that was the bookshop, and yet we knew very little about her. It made me think about all the stories each person carries and how much remains unseen. A couple of weeks after her passing, I was working in the bookstore one evening. I ended up staying late to reorganise some of the shelves. The weather was pretty horrible outside, and I knew it was supposed to clear later on, so I kind of figured I might as well shelter in place and do some jobs I'd put on the long finger. With the bad weather, the store had been really quiet that day. I was in the back room when I heard the distinct sounds of pages turning. It was unmistakable. It was like someone flipping through a book quite deliberately. I assumed I'd forgotten a customer in the store, which sometimes happened. I walked towards the sound, and as I turned the corner, I saw this shadow suddenly move from left to right. It didn't seem to be like a shadow of a person. All I can describe it as, which may sound weird, is if something was flying around a light bulb and the shadow was dancing really fast in the room. Just for a split second, but enough for you to know that something was casting a shadow. And then a book fell off a shelf and made me jump when it hit the floor. I looked around the store, but there was nobody there. And then I realised I would have heard the bell ringing if someone came in. And I hadn't heard the bell ring for, must have been over an hour. It was all very weird. I just picked up the book and put it back on the shelf. Went back into the back room and continued what I was doing. About 10 minutes after that happened, I heard another thud, which sounded like a book falling. So I went out to see. Maybe there was somebody in the store and I had missed them, but I didn't think it could be possible. No customer, no book. Everything was the way it was. It made me feel a little bit uneasy. Nothing else happened for the rest of the evening. I did what I needed to do, cashed up and went home. The next morning when I arrived at the store, outside was completely calm and the streets were practically empty. I was getting set up for the day. I went to the back room to put my coat and belongings on a chair, and I heard the bell ring at the front of the shop. I popped my head out just to see who had come in, but there was nobody there. So I walked up through the store, thinking I'd be met with somebody on the way, but there was no one. When I got to the counter, that's when the bell started to ring violently. It was moving by itself, just repeatedly ringing over and 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 over. This bell could only be rung whenever something would hit off it. There was nothing hitting off it. I could see it plainly, and then it suddenly stopped. I was terrified. I was so relieved when I seen one of the regulars coming. I ended up telling them what happened, and they just looked at me like I was crazy. For the rest of the day, I was really on edge. As the weeks went on, strange little things were happening. I'd hear light switches go on and off. Then I'd swear I heard voices coming from parts of the store when I knew there was nobody there, like when I was getting ready for closing or first thing in the morning. Whispers in the air. Sometimes they would be quite loud. They'd make your head turn, but there'd be nobody there. I ended up hating working there, but because one of the owners was still really unwell, I couldn't say no. I'd hear thuds in the shop, like things were falling. You'd hear the pages turn in books when you work in the back room. It was horrible. Besides that one time when I told a regular customer that the bell had been ringing at the door, I didn't tell anybody else. It was embarrassing. I'm ashamed to admit that I convinced my older sister to cover one of my shifts. I felt really bad because the owner's wife was still quite ill, but was getting better. So I knew after a while I would no longer have to work there anymore. I could kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel now. My sister ended up doing a few shifts, but I knew I'd have to go back. The day before I was due to return to the store, she came over to give me the keys. We chatted for a little bit, and then she said, "Some of the regulars really like you. It's a really nice store. It's so warm and cozy." And it was like she was talking about somewhere else. Although I did feel that the store felt like that at the beginning, but now it was eerie and a bit cold. In reality, she would have been a lot better suited to be looking after the store than me. She had a great love for books. I could kind of take it or leave it. She was telling me about a delivery of books that had arrived in and where she had put them for me to look after. And just as she was going, she said, "Oh, I nearly forgot. Mrs. Cunningham said to say hello." My sister wouldn't have known of any of the regulars that came into the store, so I questioned her on the surname, Mrs. Cunningham. She said yeah, and ended up describing Mrs. Cunningham down to the type of clothes she wears, what type of books she likes. She said, yeah, she came in one evening, she scared the hell out of me. I thought there was nobody in the store. She was like, yeah, she's a little bit weird. She loves the occult. She was talking to me about all these different occult topics that I hadn't got a clue what she was on about. I was pressing her for more information. What colour was her hair? How old did she look? Every answer she gave was exactly how I would describe Mrs. Cunningham. She said, yeah, nice woman, very odd. Left without saying goodbye. I didn't even see her leave. And then she just continued talking about other regulars that said to say hello, that they were expecting me there. It was really, really weird. I was praying that she was mixing her up with some other woman, but I couldn't think who. I remember for the rest of the evening, I just kept looking at the keys of the store, knowing that I have to go there tomorrow and do a shift. So I went in the next day, did my shift. Completely normal, boring day. Nothing weird happened. Ended up on the walk home thinking that I was a little bit crazy. Relieved. The next day I went in, did a shift. The most interesting thing that happened that day was a delivery of books. The day after that, again, nothing happened. Some friendly regulars came in. It wasn't until the end of the week that something really weird happened. Ever since I started experiencing these strange things in the store, I now hated doing closing. Walking through the store and turning off the lights, making sure that the back doors were closed, making sure that you had tidied up any books that were left on tables, fixed the seats. I turned off the lights and was moving up through the store to the front. I heard this really subtle knock come from behind me, so I turned around. There at the back of the store, facing away from me, was the silhouette of what looked to be Mrs. Cunningham. I could make out the shape of her figure, her long dress, the way she wore her hair. Instinctively, I remember calling out, saying hello. And just when I said hello, the bell behind me rang out, made me jump and turn around. And when I turned back, there was nobody standing at the back of the store. That was the last time I worked there. I locked up, went home. Later on, ended up going over to the owners and said to them, unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to work there anymore, that I had gotten another job. I was really sorry. Luckily, my sister was able to do a few shifts. I have never even told this story to the owners, and I've never been back in the bookstore. I don't know what Mrs. Cunningham wanted or was looking for, but I didn't hang around to find out. Thank you to Eilish for sending in your paranormal encounter. I'll definitely be looking over my shoulder in the next bookstore that I'm in. If you have your own paranormal encounter that you'd like me to narrate on the show, you can send it to scaryaparanormalpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you like what you hear, don't forget to rate and review the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps immensely. And don't forget to make sure you're following the podcast wherever you listen to it so you don't miss any episodes. Join me next time for another episode of Scary.
Hey, I'm Paige DeSorbo, and I'm always thinking about underwear.
I'm Hannah Burner, and I'm also thinking about underwear, but I prefer full coverage. I like to call them my granny panties.
Actually, I never think about underwear. That's the magic of Tommy John.
Same. They're so light and so comfy, and if it's not comfortable, I'm not wearing it.
And the bras, soft, supportive, and actually breathable.
Yes, Lord knows the girls need to breathe. Also, I need my PJs to breathe and be buttery soft and stretchy enough for my dramatic tossing and turning at night. That's why I live in my Tommy John pajamas.
Plus, they're so cute because they fit perfectly.
Put yourself on to Tommy John.
Upgrade your drawer with Tommy John. Save 25% for a limited time at TommyJohn.com/comfort. See site for details.
Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more, or visit tremfyaradio.com.